Hey folks, welcome to the Right on Crime podcast. I'm Brett Tolman, the executive director of Right on Crime, and I have my good friend with me today. So I'm just thrilled to talk to Josh Smith, and he's one of my heroes. And we've become friends, but his story is amazing. I want him to tell you a little bit about his story, and then I'm going to ask him some questions, and we're going to get some answers from Josh Smith. Josh, thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Josh, tell folks about you. What's your story?
Yeah.
What makes you tick?
Yeah, the story that most people know now is a successful business person that's gained some wealth, that owns real estate and different companies and stuff.
That wasn't always the case.
That was not the case. And so my life started out a lot different than most of the successful business people that you get to meet today. Father was, my mother now's corrected me and said I kicked him out. He didn't leave, so she kicked him out at the age of 2. Mother moved us into the inner cities to survive. She said she could afford good housing or good child care, but not both. So she chose good child care.
Wow.
And we were in government housing in the inner cities of Nashville. Ended up moving out of that and marrying to a guy that ended up just having an abusive situation with me. I was removed from the home at 11 and back around 13. Visited a juvenile facility the first time at 11 years old. Was by the time I was 16, convicted of 10 felonies, all burglary and theft in the state of Tennessee as a juvenile.
Convicted, separate felonies.
Separate felonies, yeah. And then left the school after the 10th grade. And by the time of 21, you can imagine that path. It ended up in prison. And so I was convicted by the federal government at the age of 21 to sentence 5 years in prison, to serve 5 years in prison for my role in drugs. And so even though I didn't do them, I was convicted of selling them. And so I walked into prison. And if you remember the Enron, the Enron times of all the executives they locked up, I was the beneficiary of being around others that the Department of Justice locked up in that time. And so young punk drug dealing kid meets executives and bankers that did fraud and lawyers and doctors and everything. And it was there that I was exposed to something I had not been exposed to in my life or in my neighborhood or around the group of people we're at. And so now, fast forward, life, a tough transition of getting out of prison. There's all kinds of part of that story. But now I stand as someone who's, been very blessed beyond measure, a wife of almost 28 years, 4 beautiful children, now a grandbaby, one on the way, and a life that looks a lot different than most of the people that start out the way that mine did.
Well, your experience is one in a million, many million, right? And
it is.
It's not happening to many people. And you certainly have. As you look back, what were the pivotal moments that put you where you are today?
Yeah. I think, I've been asked this a lot, and I've thought about it a lot because, you have different personalities, right? You have different things, and wondering is my personality is what's carried through some of these things. I really do think it's the exposure to successful people and a different way of life than what I was exposed to as a kid, right? When you're around people that have achieved wealth, when you're around people that have an education level, when you're around people that have started and built businesses, or bankers, people that you usually only see on TV or on far away, me being able to have a chance to be exposed to them up front and personal and live with them, right?
Yeah.
And realize that they're just people as well. I used to think, I tell people all the time when I speak in prisons or in neighborhoods that it really is this us and them. It's this weird thing. If you've never been in that poverty type area or in that demographic, you really don't realize
it's
it. But
that binary, right?
It's just us and them. And if you're not careful, like it's the poor and the rich, and if you're not careful, it's the not smart and the smart. And I think that's what prison, being exposed to those people in there, really impacted me to just say, wait a minute. They're not what I thought they were, right? And then I watched what they did. I saw how they act. And then I started just trying to emulate some of those things. I started to read books. I noticed that, there's a saying, leaders read and readers lead. Well, I had never read books. So I started reading books, right? I started exposing myself to stuff that, that otherwise I would have never been exposed to if not being introduced to some of these people.
Well, you shouldn't have to go to prison to have that exposure. But what it says
true.
to me is individuals in the community are needed to spend time with individuals that had, that didn't catch a break in life, or they made bad decisions.
Yeah.
But we don't have leaders spending time with individuals like that. We have this real separation going on. I know that, you haven't mentioned it, but you have a foundation. I want you to, tell us what that foundation is and whether, what needs to be done, to improve the incarceration experience.
So when we sold our company, Brent, it was about 5 years, a little less than 5 years ago. And my wife and I, we knew that gave us the opportunity to really be able to try to make a dent in this and kind of just asking, all right, God, what do we do? You've blessed us financially. And so we put over $10 million in a foundation called the Fourth Purpose Foundation. They say there's 4 purposes to incarceration. The fourth one is rehabilitation. And I've always struggled with that word, rehabilitation, because to rehabilitate something means that it was once right, then it got broken, and then you rehabilitate it to get it back again. So we changed that.
Sometimes they were never right?
I mean, I would almost argue that I was never right.
Yeah.
And so we changed that word to transformation instead of rehabilitation. And so our foundation's focus and mission is very clear. It's to make prison a place of transformation, just as it was for me. And so our mission is, how do we create that environment that somebody, that criminal thinking person like me, I mean, when I went to prison, I already had the outfit picked out for when I was getting out and already knew what I was going to do wrong. I mean, these are conversations I was having with friends. I mean, there was zero thought in my mind that I'm going to change my behavior.
Yeah.
And so how do we take and reach those Josh Smiths that are there? How do we change that trajectory and expose them to whatever they need to be exposed to that makes them look and say, wait a minute, this isn't the life that I either have to live or that I want to live anymore.
So how do you do that? What are the things that you want done in order to make a transformation?
Yeah, I think I love. You and I were just on a panel, right? And we got to talk to a sheriff, and what I really like is when I hear organizations, jails and prisons opening up to the community, and we're talking about the church being the real answer, right? Here's what I think it needs. I think it takes correctional leaders, jail sheriffs, and prison officials to be able to start opening up the prisons to outside community, right? And stop being scared. Volunteers are I go into prisons all over the country, all over the world. I can tell you, volunteers are the safest people in there. I mean, inmates would protect them with anything. So sometimes they'll use safety. They'll use all these reasons. Truth is these prison systems need the general public. They need business leaders coming in, looking at this, and talking to the offenders. They need religious people coming in, churches investing in them in ways that the prison system isn't going to, and many times even their family is not going to. Right? And so, I mean, when 60% of men in prison don't get visits, when over almost 90% of women don't get visits.
I heard you mention that before. Yeah. What's the difference? Why are the women not getting, 10% are getting visitation?
Yeah,
visits?
only 10%. Think about it. Who's coming to visit the men?
Yeah.
It's the women, right? And when the women are in, either the men are in too, or they don't go visit them. Yeah. They leave them. And so but the general public doesn't know this, right? So we just see criminal and we want to make it bad and make them pay and all that. But then how do they start that life? One of the things that I've said many times is there is no Josh Smith if there wasn't a wife waiting for me when I got out. I hate to think what my life would have looked like if I would have just exited back to my friends, which is actually what I'd planned on when I went in. I didn't think my wife would stay, right? And I can tell you, the prison system didn't make it any easier for her to stay. I mean, she had to fight through a lot of different things, even to just get in to visit. I mean, it's just a travesty on how we're doing that. Yet we wonder again why people go back to prison, right? Why is this revolving door? And I think really we have to just look what's inside of this door that they're going into, and how do we change that to where it's most impactful?
Yeah, I hear you talking about, your wife and the impact of it. And I've heard you say before that you need to have somebody you're afraid to let down, right?
You do.
Right? What do you mean by that? And who can it be if they don't have family or they don't have the wife and they're incarcerated?
Think about a mother for a minute, and I know, we've talked about your mother who you just lost. Mothers are able, and fathers, as we're doing things and we're doing things wrong, they're able to challenge us, right? Hey, don't do that.
Yeah.
Or encourage us, right? But we know we would let them down, right? Mm-hmm. And so you and I are both married. Man, if we went out and did something wrong, man, we would be letting down people that care about us. Well, what most people don't realize is prison is full of people that don't have anybody to let down. They've all been given up on.
They don't really care. They give up.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so now this person has sat in prison for all this time. Nobody's paying attention to them. Everybody stopped writing. Everybody stopped calling. They say there's nothing more dangerous than a person with no hope. And that's the areas, as much as we want to punish the evildoers and those that violate society, man, we have to remember that restorative part, right? I mean, we want to break them down. We want to make sure that they understand not to do that again. But we don't want to break them forever. We don't want them, to never be able to come through that. And that's unfortunately what is happening in the prison systems for so many people. That's why we see them get out. Again, they have nobody to let down. And sometimes we keep them in prison so long for some of these things that they're so institutionalized. When we're done, we might as well just get ready and pay the money, because we're going to keep them there for the rest of their life.
Well, what do you say to folks that say, look, they're criminals, and we should not be, they got to be punished, and that's what the criminal justice system is, and it's working because they're getting caught and they're being prosecuted and they're serving sentences. So what do you say to those that are like, we should be focusing resources, to those who are not committing crime? Yeah.
So what I would say is I agree with everything that you just said, right? I agree 100%. Now we just have to focus on what does that look. Is prison enough? I mean, if we were going to discipline our children, you have to take it to a place where most people can understand. So if we're going to discipline our children, what if we just didn't talk to them? We just locked them in their room for a month, okay? And then we let them out. But yet we've not coached them. We've not said, hey, this is the behavior you did, and that's why you're suffering this penalty, this punishment. And if you do it again, it's going to be next time worse, right? But if we did it without even a conversation, with nothing, and then what we do is we put our children in with everybody else's children that have been acting up. Again, no direction, no anything. Are they going to get better?
Yeah.
Or are they going to get worse?
Yeah.
Right? And so I agree. We do need to be tough on crime. We do need to incarcerate people. We do need to separate them from society. Not as many as what we're doing, but we do. We just have to be very intent on what environment they're going to be in, because they are going to be our neighbors.
Yeah.
They are going to be walking around the grocery stores with our children, our grandchildren. They're going to be living next door to people we care about. What do we want? I mean, what kind of person do we want being our neighbor? And until that clicks, it's just so easy to just be tough on crime.
Well, it's like I say, we're doing the same things, and when you do the same things over and expect a different result, definition of insanity. But it's not the definition of tough on crime.
It's not.
Because they're getting out and they're committing crime. Well, Josh, thanks. I love your story.
Absolutely.
Appreciate all your fire.
Absolutely.
Your organization, Fourth Purpose Foundation.org.
Yeah, they can look up Fourth Purpose, Fourth Purpose, Purpose, .org. and find out all the information. They can see all the videos that we do for people in prison. They can see the videos that we do for staff wellness and correctional staff all over the country to invest in them. And again, really just truly to make prison a place of transformation.
Thanks, Josh. You can see why we have Josh on and what a champion he is. You can get this content and more content on www.rideoncrime.com. Go to that site, get involved, be part of the solution, not the problem. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.